All right. We are back. I hope you all enjoyed that session and got a little glimpse into some of the benefits that your work has downstream after the features ship and go out into the wild. So now to close things out, this last session is actually not a pre-recorded session, but rather what we thought would be useful in order to sort of mirror that face-to-face interaction with our engineering teams that we know is so valuable and that we know we can't bring to the virtual format is actually host just a very open-ended, free-form 40-minute panel with some engineers with different areas of expertise from within Roku. So to that end, I'm going to ask the panelists now to turn on their cameras and also go ahead and unmute yourselves, and I'll introduce you all. All right. Hey, everybody, welcome. So on the line here, we have some familiar faces. For anybody who's attended the Developer Summit before, we have some familiar faces. And I think even for those who may not have been at the Developer Summit before, probably are likely to recognize Ben as well, given his partner-facing role. So I'll go through and do some introductions now. So we have Matt Emerson, Jim Kent, and Nas Banav all on the line. They are all senior software engineers. Matt and Jim are actually principal architects for RSG, Roku Scene Graph. And Nas is on the RAF engineering team. So that is the area of expertise they're bringing. Kimran Baharlu on the line is our senior manager for software engineering, and he is also a Roku Scene Graph expert. So welcome, Cameron. And then joining us for the first time on one of our engineering panels is Benjamin Triplett. He manages the partner engineering team, and so welcome, Ben. So like I said, this is really intended to be a super free-form conversation. We do have some questions that you all wrote in. I think for the nature of this session, it'll be best if folks can really go ahead and raise their hand. I think we've seen a lot of success with that in our Scene Graph panels in the past. And so to that end, I will make sure we address those questions that were written in, but I'm actually more fond of having folks raise their hand and ask those same questions, and then I'll sort of strike them through once I hear them. So that's the format we're going to take, and with that, we'll open it up to the audience. So we've already got a question from Chris. So I'm going to go ahead and let you speak, Chris. If you can just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. So one of the things I really wanted to get in was asking about the Debug Protocol. We've been working with it in the community quite a bit over the past year or so, and it's really been far more accurate than anything we could have done in the past using Telnet. One of the things that we're looking for is wondering if there's any update or information around being able to execute arbitrary code for the protocol so that we can have a much more complete debug experience for our developers.
So I think, so thanks for the question, Chris. So Jeff Dunn is sort of our resident expert on the debug protocol, and we don't have him on the line now, unfortunately. So if any of the panelists feel that they have a response, you can go ahead and speak that response now. I think otherwise, we are obviously rolling out this webinar series that we've mentioned a few times throughout the day. And while we have had sessions on the debug protocol before at the Developer Summit, we've never done that in a more open format. So I'll definitely mark this as a topic that maybe makes sense for us to readdress through one of those webinars in the future. Cool. Thank you, Chris. All right, so now, George, I'm going to call on you as well. Feel free to unmute yourself whenever you're ready.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Thank you, Tom. I've got a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to ask one, and if there's time, I'll come back to others. But I just want to frame the questions because I think then it might make it, we might get better answers. So what I'm kind of getting at when I'm looking at the architectural work that I do and the development work I do, the framework support I'm doing and things like this, I'm kind of looking at the various ecosystems in OTT and the clients I work with that work on the disparate systems. They work on Apple TV and Android, etc. And we're kind of getting increasingly aware of the heating up of competition. Obviously, we're glad to see Roku's trouncing everybody. And to be completely clear, I only do Roku. I don't do any of the other platforms. So, I'm fully invested in the platform. And it seems to me, and this isn't the question, this is just kind of, like I say, giving some context. It seems to me like the other platforms are coming down at a price point. I still don't think the usability is as good as Roku, but there's other areas they're competing on. It seems that the fidelity of the applications that we're producing has to start increasing necessarily. You've got Moore's law, hardware's getting better, user paradigms are getting better, etc. So the whole point of the questions I'm asking are with the context of looking forward over the next couple of years, as we as Roku developers are looking to make your platform as successful as we possibly can and to produce user experiences that delight and maintain users on the platform. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask my first question, please, which is to do with video buffering, because I think we're starting to see the emergence of new UX paradigms in the OTT space. And one of those that seems to be coming up a lot at the moment is the realization that users have a better idea of what they don't want than what they do want. So like new discoverability models. I'm having quite a few people speak to me who are interested in streaming a video and having that video ready for instant playback to facilitate that kind of UX paradigm without reaching the end of the current stream. So if you imagine that I'm browsing, I'm watching some video and I want to go to the next video in my playlist, but I don't want to wait to the end of the video. I'm pretty much convinced that's going to be a standard UX paradigm in 2022. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering what you guys are doing with everything I've said in mind, if there's going to be any improvements, for example, in playlist support, where currently it seems to me that we wait for the end of the current stream. Are we going to start seeing things where we can start embracing those kinds of new UX paradigms on the Roku platform, so we can be sure that we're creating best of breed experiences?
It's a very good question, George. From a media perspective, to a degree, what you're describing is almost dual decode. Mm-hmm. There is a hardware aspect to that. So that is something that we're aware of and we're looking into it. But you do bring up a good point, and it is something that is being explored and being investigated as you've mentioned, that the industry is shifting towards that, and its user expectations are kind of going that route as well.
May I just ask one thing? Because again, I don't want to, all of us think we're clever clogs and we can peer inside your stack and know what you're doing. But would there be any possibility, without having to do massive rewrites on your part, you could, for example, when you have a playlist, one, offer the facility to clear out the next buffer if we change the next playlist item that's currently static. But two, is there anything that would stop you guys internally preloading the next buffer once the current buffer is full for the current stream?
There are some technical aspects to it. It mainly has to do with how the buffering mechanism works and the fundamental change of switching from one video to another. Mm. So it's not something that's supported at this time, but it simply has to do with the way that the system is architected. But that's purely from switching from one stream to another. As for dual decode, that's obviously a hardware aspect to it.
Yeah, I was looking primarily to see if there's a use case where you get dual decode light, if you like. So for example, you're loading stream A in the playlist. It's now the buffer's completely full for the current stream. Could we go off and then start loading the next one to facilitate that? I'm just trying to see if there's any hope of seeing this feature anytime soon.
So
because I can...
I'm assuming you're already kind of utilized pre-buffering, like VideoNode has the pre-buffering feature.
Yeah, I'm talking about a use case where I'm playing a video and now I want to skip to the next one, and I don't know what it is yet. Or I know what it is once I start playing the current one. Imagine a recommendation engine, for example.
Mm-hmm. And you would effectively not see a buffering screen. Like you would have already buffered the new video that you know that.
Exactly, and I'm telling you, man, if everyone's not doing this come 2022, I'll buy you a round of beers.
Hold you to that.
Yeah. We have to get me a Roku soundbar in return if I'm wrong, okay?
We'll see what we can do, George. Okay, yeah, it's a fascinating topic. I think that's probably the most we can say about that right now. I know you have a bunch of questions, George, and we do want to let you ask them all, but what I'll suggest now is maybe we toggle it over to somebody else, and then if there's a lull, we can come back to you. just in the name of getting some other folks some airtime. So Ish, I'm going to call on you now. Oh, yeah, here we go. I'm going to call on you now. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I have two kind of related questions. This is around the video node and scene graph. We at Haystack, we're a news app, and so one of the main use cases that we have found is we increasingly need to shrink the video in order to make room for overlays. So we just introduced a new feature where it shows a ticker at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to be introducing overlays to the right of the screen so users can see like stock information and other cool stuff while they're watching the news. But there's a couple problems that we've been encountering when you shrink this video node. So the first is closed captioning doesn't seem to work when we shrink the video node at all or move the position. It seems like it only seems to work in completely full screen mode, which doesn't really work for our use case. And then the second thing that I've noticed, this seems to be a regression in 9.3 potentially, is it used to be that we could shift the video up a little bit to make room for stuff at the bottom. Like we could have like a -40, for instance, on the Y coordinate, and that no longer works. So that's working on some devices and it's broken on other devices. So it seems like it's a bug.
That could have been by design, because typically you wouldn't want to crop video, which is effectively what you're describing. You're moving it off the viewable plane.
In our case, we want to be able to, because
right.
we have plenty of safety margin, and we want to be able to make room for a ticker at the bottom, and we have lower thirds that otherwise would be covered up. So we need to actually be able to do that.
I can address a couple things. Yeah, as far as I know, you should be able to set the Y coordinate of the video node, and that should work. So if it's not working on some hardware, work with the dev support team and make sure you file bugs. There's no reason why I don't think that would work. And as far as the closed captioning, yeah, I mean, we don't implement that when the video is less than full screen, mostly just because if you make it, tiny, there's no room to show the closed captions. So,
is there a way that we can render it ourselves so that, like, if we want to, like, we would still show it at the full width of the screen, but maybe it covers up certain things, but we would just want some more control to be able to position the view, the labels and everything where we want to, because it seems like right now there's not that much flexibility in terms of how closed captions can be rendered on the screen.
Yeah, this is a good topic for us to engage on at some point. Again, if you would work with your dev support person, to let us know your requirements. I agree that if the video is 80%, we probably should be able to render the closed captions. And I don't think there's any way that we can give you the data to render yourself currently, but that's another possibility, I guess.
Great, thank you. We'll definitely follow up.
Thanks, Ish. Okay, so we also have a question from Brian Lightly. So Brian, I'm going to call on you now. And you can unmute. You can go ahead and speak, Brian.
You hear me now?
Yes. Yes,
Can
we
you
can
hear
hear you. Yes, sir. It seems like maybe you're not able to hear us, so I'll go ahead and suggest that maybe you can write in your question. Yeah. Here, Brian, I suggest that you write in your question. I think we're having some issues. So in the meantime, I'll read some questions that have been written in from the audience. We've got actually a couple different questions about WebSockets and whether or not we plan on supporting these in the future. I don't think in this format we'll be commenting on roadmap, but I do think since we're getting a couple of these questions, I think maybe it's a good question for you, Ben, being on the partner side. I'm sure you make recommendations around WebSockets and alternative solutions occasionally.
We actually haven't made too many recommendations around it. It has been a hot topic and a hot ask. But from a BrightScript implementation standpoint, there isn't a performant way to really implement WebSockets, secure WebSockets in BrightScript without underlying support.
Right. Okay, yeah. So I guess in that case, the best we can say for you is stay tuned and also participate in our beta program. And that'll be your best way to get insights into what's coming in the next software updates. So Felipe has a question asking, with new thumbnail supports for Dash and HLS, is there an API to obtain the image and render the thumbnail ourselves when we render the player UI ourselves? So it's a question about using custom UI, custom trick play. Do you have any recommendations on?
This is a question that none of the engineers here know, but we would have to get the answer from some other people who actually have worked with thumbnails.
Okay. Okay, so Felipe, in that case, what we'll do is try to follow up with you offline following the event. Alrighty. So Nas, we have some ad-related questions that I think we have some time for now. So the first question that we should ask is if it's possible to implement fully custom interactive ads without Brightline or Innovid.
Well, it is possible to implement it. RAF specifically, the Roku Ads framework comes with Brightline, Innovid, and Roku Interactive Ads plugin built in. We may be working in the future with other interactive vendors. The benefit of doing this in RAF is that it's available for all apps on all devices. We provide consistency. I would encourage, so I don't know if whoever asked this question is present, to ask, do they mean specifically video ads or do they mean like display ads with interaction? Over.
So in response to that, let's see, actually. So that question came from Pavel Benar. Are you on, Pavel? If you are, maybe you can go ahead and raise your hand.
Yeah.
Yes, so Pavel's raising his hand. So I'm going to call on you, Pavel, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Yes, there was a more question to non-video ads. In video, it's standard to play that. Is there any other options for non-video ads?
We do not provide outside. I do not believe that we provide an option for interactive ads outside of, standardized as part of a plugin or a library. You are free to implement this with code from a vendor or through a downloadable component library, perhaps. I don't.
Yeah, there are some vendors which are providing the interactive ads. If I would like to build my own custom one, is there an option for that?
If you're asking, I can only answer in the context of technical issues. If you're asking about the legal status, just open a case with partner support and they will read the fine print and stuff. I don't believe there is, but I cannot answer.
Okay, fine. I can take it offline. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks, Pavel. So Kevin Hoos, I'm going to go ahead and call on you now. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was wondering, with the hardware that you've been describing, the new Ultra, the new Stream Bar, any idea when that will be shipped out?
I believe those are on shelves now. I can actually look that up for you and get you an answer during this conversation, but I believe they're on shelves now.
Because on the Roku website, they're not showing that it shows pre-order, but it does not show available to order. To actually have it shipped right now.
Okay. What I'll do is reach out to some folks internally and try to get an answer for you while we're on this chat, and then otherwise I'll follow up with you offline.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Yep. Thank you, Kevin. All right. So now I'm calling on Uros. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi guys. I will try to be quick. I have a question regarding content is playlist field of video node. What I noticed is if you set that to true, you will get, okay, then you will put like 5 or 4 items there. And if items are dash streams, it will be one continuous playback. So there's no like changes from buffering to playing between the items. But if I have a mixed playlist of dash and HLS, then I will see that video player will change states in between the items. That's one thing. And I also noticed that if I check duration, like a second item from a playlist will start, I will check duration for that item, but actually I'm going to receive the duration of the previous item. So I was just wondering, like, is this a bug or do you know something more about it?
I believe the mixed streams, like if it's mixed of that in a playlist, that's, I mean, it's kind of a limitation, not necessarily a bug, it's a known limitation.
Okay.
But duration sounds like a bug if that's the case.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Euros. So I'm going to call on Igor now. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, guys. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. First, it seems I found a bug for dash stream. When I put on pause, it doesn't work. So HLS stream, when I put pause, it works. On dash, it doesn't work. This is first question. The second question is when I make a few API calls using different threads, it exists a possibility to make a critical section like mutex or log something like this to block one thread until another is executed. So I could not find this type of information on all the sites. So sometimes I need to log the threads and to work with threads. So thank you for this. If you can explain me how to make this, would be very good.
Take the thread question, Tom. You want me to?
Yeah. I will apologize. I was actually trying to moderate at the same time. Is the question around the 50 thread limit?
No.
No. Locking.
It's locking. It has to do with the basic architecture. There's deliberately no locking in RSG. So tasks that run until they need to access shared data, and that shared data is always served by the render thread. Anytime there are nodes that contain fields, or the nodes themselves actually, the API interfaces on those shared nodes, there'll be a rendezvous with the render thread so that all of the synchronization happens in the background. So there are no other explicit locking primitives. If you feel like you need to do specific sets of operations synchronously, then you would just make sure they're done on the render thread as part of a single callback, observed callback on the render thread. So that's how you get a critical section, if you will, in RSG.
Excellent. And that was one part of a two-part question?
Igor, I think you had a question about an issue with dash playback and pausing. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yes. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
So the question is, when I stream HLS format and I put a pause from video node, the stream is paused without any issues. When I work with Dash and I start to make same thing, it's not paused. It continue played.
And this is not a dynamic playlist. This is a VOD.
Yes. It's VOD, yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So I have made some tests and I found this. And the workaround was to put while true and to start pausing 10 times per second. And this is not the better idea. So
yeah, that sounds very unusual. I'm not sure if you could reach out to Tom or our partner success team and share your sample app along with your sample stream.
Yes.
Because it doesn't sound like it should behave like that. That doesn't make sense.
If you can to check this, will be very, very great. And thank you.
Tom's behavior on live would be very different, but since this is a VOD stream, I wouldn't expect that.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. All right, Igor. So we'll follow up with you to get you some support on that. So the next question is from Joe Suchta. The question is, are there any approaches to deriving a bitmap object from a region or a component during runtime in a scene graph app?
So the question is, can you basically render some part of your scene graph into an off-screen buffer? Is that what you're asking?
Joe, if you'd like to raise your hand, we could call on you to give more detail. And here you go. All right, Joe, you can unmute.
Yes, yes, I want to be able to grab either a region or a component or something and throw it into an off-screen buffer so I can use so I can get a bitmap, essentially, yeah, from any object. Is it possible, or can I use legacy methods like row region and stuff like that? Is it possible?
Yeah, I don't think there's any way for you to do that right now. We do some tricks internally sometimes to do that sort of thing, but I don't think anything is exposed to developers. So that's where we are right now.
Real quick, affine transformations. Just going to throw it out there.
Excuse me?
Affine transformations. Any chance we could someday get 3D transformation matrices in the future?
Yeah, that would be something that someone above me would need to decide. Potentially kind of like to keep things in a two space. Our UX team has strong opinions about some of those questions. So
what a decent card flip.
Excuse me?
I just wanted to get a decent card flip looking thing.
Yeah.
So we do always distill feature requests that come out of the developer summit to the respective product teams. So we can distill that down for you, Joe, to the UX team.
Fantastic. That'd be great.
Yeah, those are both good things, the card flips and also the off-screen buffer rendering.
Okay, so I'm now going to call on George again. George, you should have the ability to unmute yourself still, if you wanted to ask a second question.
Looks like it, yeah. Guys, if it's all right, I just got a couple of real quick fire ones. Gif Animations. Firstly, have you guys got any plans to support that on the platform?
We get the request quite a bit. Right now, there's no official plan to support it.
Okay, seeing as you have the oversight of everything, is the best way to do that, in your opinion, mask plus offset, or do you guys know a more clever and efficient way we should be doing to emulate GIF animations at this point?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay, cool. Next one is...
And the workarounds for GIF animation have been, just basically using building the animation and basically taking each frame as a poster and kind of animating that.
Yeah, exactly.
Has been things that we've seen.
Okay, another couple of quick ones, which is there any plan or is there an undocumented way to get a pointer to a function by name?
Not right now.
Can you be a little more specific on how you want to use it?
Yeah, at the moment, say for example, if I want to invoke a function in node scope, which is not a function attached to an associative array, but I don't know what function it is until runtime, and the function I want to execute is stored inside a string. Say for example, I've got some kind of template strategy in my code, and I might execute function 1, function 2, or function 3. I'm not sure what it's going to be till runtime. The string tells me what function I'm going to call. Presently, I don't know of any way that I can actually get the pointer to function 1 or function 2 or function 3 in the node's scope.
There are some things that you can do, and there's some scopes which will allow the function reference to remain valid. It would probably take quite a while to go through exactly how that would work online. Maybe I can work with Tom offline.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd love that, because currently what I do, I build out reflection in some of the framework stuff I do, and I know Bronley and the team who are looking at BriderScript, they're looking at doing reflection, and that's the hurdle we have to overcome. Our only recourse currently is to build a massive if-else statement,
right,
which you can imagine isn't very pretty.
That's not a very satisfactory technique, or at least it's painful. Yeah, let me get with Tom and talk about there are a few things you can do, but we do not have a general function object that you can pass around between threads and context.
Okay, cool. And then I've got a bunch more, but I'm just going to ask one more, which is there anything you keep seeing us doing in our code which we really should not be doing, where you guys just end up slapping your heads going, my goodness, when are they going to stop doing this?
It's a great question. Ben, you probably have the most insight into partner code on this panel. If you have any immediate thoughts in response to that.
Probably the most common thing I've seen, and I mean in general this will apply to any embedded development, is busy waits. I see a lot of channels that'll have busy waits, which both taxes the CPU and causes visually performance issues in the channel. So while I don't see it too frequently, thankfully, it does tend to be the root cause of a lot of issues when they are brought up.
Cool.
Excellent. Thanks. So we've got about 4 minutes left. First, Kevin, I'm going to address your question earlier about on-shelf dates for the new devices. So I got that answer for you. The any pre-orders will ship on October 15th, and they'll be on shelf in retail stores by October 18th. So those are the dates for that. And then in the Q&A here, we do have a question again from John George. He's asking, and this actually in some ways might harken back to the conversation we've had about dual decode, but he's asking if there are any plans to support picture-in-picture. And I guess I'll ask that open-ended from, I guess, a software angle. I know right now our devices don't have two decoders.
Yeah, that really does go back to dual decode support, both from a hardware or software perspective.
Right. Okay. Brian Elliott is asking if there's any plan to work on removing the black screen that appears after the splash screen when loading a channel. Or I think maybe a better way to ask that question, since we won't be making feature-facing statements. I've seen from channel to channel that there's a different duration of that black flicker. And so the better question might be if there are best practices for minimizing how long that black screen lasts. Jim, it looks like you have a thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the black screen can last different amounts of time, and some of the reason why we go to black is when we have to actually hand off the graphic hardware from one application to another. there's really little we can do other than to, briefly go to black. Yeah, I mean, we look and see how we can minimize that with every release, basically. So.
Yep. So that sounds like something that will continue to be optimized from firmware release to firmware release. So there's two questions in here that are coming up often enough that I'll address them with sort of a blanket statement. So there's a question around an emulator and a question around whether or not we have plans to put our docs in something like GitHub, where the markdown is available for community contributions. Both of those are, we definitely track those as common developer requests. We do track them internally, but we don't have any plans right now that we can reveal with you on those topics. All right, so that does put us at time. Unless I see somebody's hand shoot up, we might have time for one more question. Somebody, ideally, who hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet. Yep, I'm not seeing any. So I'm going to, I think that's a good point to wrap it, because we are pretty much at time. Hopefully you all found it useful, this panel. Obviously with the constraints, we're not able to interact with you face to face, which is something that we value, and we know that you do as well. But hopefully this was able to get you some answers to your burning questions. And as I said throughout the day, we will be reviewing the transcript from the day and following up with folks who we said we would. So keep an eye out for that as well if you have an unanswered question. So just some housekeeping as we wrap things up here. It goes without saying, we thank you all for tuning in and working with us on this virtual format. This is a first for us, I think. So we just appreciate you guys hanging in and tuning in and staying tuned in. Probably this year more than ever, given that this is a first for us, we're really looking for your feedback and overall satisfaction thoughts on the day's event. So as with every year, we're going to send out a satisfaction and feedback survey. We really, really do hope you guys fill that out. There's obviously a lot that we're learning kind of as we go with this format. And so that'll be really useful for us. I will also mention that the survey ends with an optional field where you can provide your address. And if you do that, we'll be able to send the first 250 responders some swag. So view that. If for no other reason, please go ahead and respond so you can get yourself some cool swag. And with that, that wraps up the day's event. So we are planning on posting these recordings on our YouTube channel that we've been promoting throughout the day, as well as on our Roku Developers channel available in the channel store and on our developer site. So keep an eye out for that later this week. And we also hope to see you at our ongoing webinar series. Thank you guys so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your week.